Hello, BookTube. It's Thursday, and I've got a mini mail haul for you here. I've got 3 books, 2 that I had ordered earlier in the week, and 1 that I ordered a week and a half ago, I believe it was. Just on the sort of continuing with Flaubert, I had ordered Flaubert in Egypt, but this is a very damaged copy. Well, it looks better on the screen, but it looks like somebody's taking sandpaper to the edges, a rip in the front, and there's just like a big kink in the back, which it's really, you probably can't see properly, but it's like badly scuffed along the thing. It's definitely not a new copy in any shape or form, so I'm going to have to contact Amazon about that, but there's no way I can get it back to them. So I might be stuck with it, but I want it for a reduction. And Three Tales, really short one again. Penguin. It's like I say, it's very short, but those should be interesting. Third one that I've been waiting for, and I started to read it already, is Clifford Donald Simak, Clifford D. Simak. It's a personal biography or affectionate appreciation by Francis Lyle, who's a retired academic lawyer in Scotland. And it should be interesting. There's like no bibliography, and he says he's written it over 40 years. First part of it he wrote in the early 80s, mid-80s, and left it. Then he's added to it a few times, but he's never sort of rewritten the whole thing and put it together. So looks like it's going to be quite choppy, and it is self-published, so I don't expect a lot, but I hope there'll be a few things that I don't know about Simak, and maybe a few other references that I am unfamiliar with. And one reference that was about the biggest one so far in book form is this one here. It's Milford series of popular writers of today. It's volume 73. And it's When the Fires Burn High and the Wind is from the North, the pastoral science fiction of Clifford D. Simak by Robert J. Ewald, a Borgo Press original. And this was published in 2006. I came to the UK in 2005, so I purchased this after I found out, probably about 2008, 2009, that I found out about it. It's an imprint. The Borgo Press is an imprint of Wildside Press, so yeah, 2006, and they call it a first edition, but it was a print on demand as well, so it doesn't really mean much, but I decided to get the hardcover rather than the paperback. It's basically just goes through, it gives us good summary, it gives an outline of his life, and then it gives sort of early writings and a summary of most of the novels. It's very cursory. It's very there's never really been much that goes in depth into his fiction. Sadly, there's the Carlson that I mentioned in Thomas Carlson. There's a few others. Lyle mentions them here that were probably the best, the only ones, to be honest, that has been done. Sam Moskowitz in Seekers of Tomorrow, Masters of Science Fiction, Masters of Modern Science Fiction, 1974. He wrote about, a substantial, for the time, article on him. David Pringle, Aliens for Neighbors, a reassessment of Clifford D. Simak, and Foundation, the Review of Science Fiction. I used to have that issue. Then Muriel Becker bibliography that I mentioned. This one I'm not too sure is Paul A. Carter, The Creation of Tomorrow. I'm sure because it's called 50 Years of Magazine Science Fiction. I'm sure I've had that. And then Lester Del Rey did a little bit in his History of a Subculture, The World of Science Fiction, 26 to 76. And Carlson, Thomas Carlson. But very little has been really written about his fiction, and I don't really understand why. There's books on other science fiction authors, but I'm sure there's still lots that has not been written. I don't mean an academic survey or anything like that. It would be just great to discuss his writing, all his writing, including his newspaper writing and his other nonfiction books, because he wrote a few science books and he wrote a few articles that were nonfiction. And it would be nice to dovetail all this together, and it would be an interesting study to do that. I've wanted to do that in the past, but it's just gaining access to stuff, and it just seems like, well, Francis Lyle, I've spoken to him many years ago in the early 90s, and he was just tight-lipped. He wanted information about CIMAC, but he was not forthcoming with any information whatsoever. And the estate, David W. Wixon, he had plans, and he's starting to do the series of, it'll be 14 actually volumes. I finally got the first volume on Monday, I think it was. Yeah, I got the first volume, and he does say it'll be 14 volumes. There's 8 volumes in paperback, and there's an additional 4 that are in Kindle ebook. I'm assuming other format as well. So there's 2 more that are outstanding at this point, as far as I can tell. But that's it. It's just his fiction. It's 100, because there's about 140 short stories that are known to exist still that he wrote. There's many that have disappeared that he actually wrote. Some didn't get published, but some of them, they just can't track them down, because he did, I believe, use it as a pseudonym occasionally. But I do have something that's another interesting little thing is March-April issue, Volume 1, Number 4 of Marvel Tales of Science and Fantasy. It's from 1934. It's quite rough, but I have 2 things that I brought books. I got one that is the biography of David Livingstone, that I brought with me. I still have left. I brought a few other books, but I had to sell those. But I kept that one because the bookseller didn't want it. And this, I had it in a little plastic case with a few signed photographs of people that I wanted to keep. And I brought this with me. And it's quite rough. The pages are brown. It's brittle. The edges are flaking. But it's got a complete novelette by Clifford D. CIMAC called The Creator. It's illustrated by Clay Ferguson Jr. It's just sort of typical of, if I can do this without destroying the book, the magazine. I don't think there's too many. And they're still fairly supple, but the pages are brown, so I have read it. I read it from here, and then I bought a reprint of it. Somebody did a reprint in a stapled edition, but the copy I had 2 pages, like the same page printed over twice. So it was a rarity, but it was not readable. This also has a serial, The Titan by P. Schiller Miller, which was quite popular for quite a while. Reprint, Nebula of Death by George Allen England. And then in the short stories, there's an H.P. Lovecraft short story in here. And it might actually be the first printing of it, because this is, I think, fairly sought after for the H.P. Lovecraft story, not the CIMAC. But to me, it was the CIMAC that I wanted. And it's interesting. It's got a stamp of an Chicago, Illinois, science fiction bookseller. When that was put there, I don't know. M. Korshak, dealer in science and weird fiction. So I'm assuming it was probably done sometime. There weren't too many specialty shops. So I would think it would be 60s at the earliest, probably more like 70s or possibly even 80s. But it's a shame that they decided to stamp on it. As I say, it's a bit rough, and the printing is wonky, as you can see, but this was a strange sort of publication because it started out with different sizes like this, and it only went a few issues looking like this, and then it morphed into the normal pulps of the time. I think that was in the late 40s. So if anybody's familiar with it, they're probably familiar with the most of the pulps. These are quite hard to find, the early ones, because I think it was only by subscription only. And oh, that's interesting. The location that's Bedford, Pennsylvania. Well, it's in Old Bedford here in the UK. So that's kind of interesting. I never noticed that until now. But yeah, that's what I'll be doing. I don't think I'll be doing the essay tonight, because I think I'm going to just crack on a little bit with this and sort of do some searching online to see if I can find some of the articles that I had read before and just reread them and see what there is. I got news today that I'm off today, tomorrow, and the weekend. Today and tomorrow was pre-booked holiday. And then I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'm furloughed. They don't need my services anymore, so I'll be off for at least 3 weeks. I don't get full pay, but I won't be working. And then after that, we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll have a job at the end of all this. I don't think anybody does. So it's interesting times is about the only thing I could say. And as you can see, I got lots around me to keep me busy. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be ordering anything more. Got to conserve and dig into what I have here for reading. But I will maintain doing videos as much as possible. As I say, I won't be doing the essay today, I don't think, but I will definitely do it tomorrow. Anyway, have a good evening, BookTube. Bye.